IELTS Reading Out Loud, Day 11. I read out loud IELTS reading section to hopefully improve my speaking skills. Part 1. Case Study, Tourism New Zealand website. New Zealand is a small country of 4 million inhabitants, a long-haul flight from all the major tourist-generating markets of the world. Tourism currently makes up 9% of the country's gross domestic product and is the country's largest export sector. Unlike other export sectors, which make products and then sell them overseas, tourism brings its customer to New Zealand. The product is the country itself, the people, the places, and the experiences. In 1999, Tourism New Zealand launched a campaign to communicate a new brand position to the world. The campaign focused on New Zealand's scenic beauty, exhilarating outdoor activities, and authentic Maori culture, and it made New Zealand one of the strongest national brands in the world. A key feature of the campaign was the website worldwideweb.newzealand.com, which provided potential visitors to New Zealand with a single gateway to everything the destination had to offer. The heart of the website was a database of tourism services operators, both those based in New Zealand and those based abroad, which offered tourism services to the country. Any tourism-related business could be listed by filling in a simple form. This meant that even the smallest bed and breakfast address or specialist activity provider could gain a web presence with access to an audience of long-haul visitors. In addition, because participating businesses were able to update the details they gave on a regular basis, the information provided remained accurate. And to maintain and improve standards, Tourism New Zealand organized a scheme whereby organizations appearing on the website underwent an independent evaluation against a set of agreed national standards of quality. As part of this, the effect of each business on the environment was considered. To communicate the New Zealand experience, the site also carried features relating to famous people and places. One of the most popular was an interview with former New Zealand All Blacks rugby captain Tana Umaga. Another feature that attracted a lot of attention was an interactive journey through a number of the locations chosen for blockbuster films, which had made use of New Zealand's stunning scenery as a backdrop. As the site developed, additional features were added to help independent travelers devise their own customized initiaries. To make it easier to plan motoring holidays, the site cataloged the most popular driving routes in the country, highlighting different routes according to the season and indicating distances and times. Later, a travel planner feature was added, which allowed visitors to click and bookmark places or attractions they were interested in, and then view the results on a map. The travel planner offered suggested routes and public transport options between the chosen locations. There were also links to accommodation in the area. By registering with the website, users could save their travel plan and return to it later, or print it out to take on the visit. The website also had a Your Words sections where anyone could submit a blog of their New Zealand travelers for possible inclusion on the website. The Tourism New Zealand website won 2 Webby Awards for online achievement and innovation. More importantly, perhaps, the growth of tourism to New Zealand was impressive. Overall tourism expenditure increased by an average of 6.9% per year between 1999 and 2004. From Britain, visits to New Zealand grew at an average annual rate of 13% between 2002 and 2006, compared to a rate of 4% overall for British visits abroad. The website was set up to allow both individuals and travel organizations to create initiaries and travel packages to suit their own needs and interests. On the website, visitors can search for activities not solely by geographical location, but also by the particular nature of the activity. This is most important as research shows that activities are the key driver of visitor satisfaction, contributing 74% to visitor satisfaction, while transport and accommodation account for the remaining 26%. The more activities that visitors undertake, the more satisfied they will be. This has also been found that It has also been found that visitors enjoy cultural activities most when they are interactive, such as visiting a marae meeting ground to learn about traditional Maori life. Many long-haul travelers enjoy such learning experiences, which provide them with stories to take home to their friends and family. In addition, it appears that visitors to New Zealand don't want to be one of the crowd and find activities that involve only a few people more special and meaningful. It could be argued that New Zealand is not a typical destination. New Zealand is a small country with a visitor economy composed mainly of small businesses. It is generally perceived as a safe English-speaking country with a reliable transport infrastructure. Because of the long-haul flight, most visitors stay for longer, an average of 20 days, and want to see as much of the country as possible on what is often seen as a one-in-a-lifetime visit. However, the underlying lessons apply anywhere. The effectiveness of a strong brand, a strategy based on unique experience, and a comprehensive and user-friendly website. Part 2. Why being bored is stimulating and useful too. This most common of emotions is turning out to be more interesting than we thought. We all know how it feels. It's impossible to keep your mind on anything. Time stretched out, and all the things you could do seem equally unlikely to make you feel better. But defining boredom so that it can be studied in the lab has proven difficult. For a start, it can include a lot of other mental states, such as frustration, apathy, depression, and indifference. There isn't any agreement over whether boredom is always a low energy, flat kind of emotion, or whether feeling agitated and restless counts as boredom too. In his book, Boredom, A Lively History, Peter Toohey at the University of Calgary, Canada, compares it to disgust, an emotion that motivates us to stay away from certain situations. If disgust protects humans from infection, boredom may protect them from infectious social interactions, he suggests. By asking people about their experience of boredom, Thomas Goes and his team at the University of Konstanz in Germany have recently identified 5 distinct types: indifferent, calibrating, searching, reactant, and apathetic. These can be plotted on 2 axes, one running on left to right, which measures how low to high arousal, and the other from top to bottom, which measures how positive or negative the feeling is. Intrig- intriguing, Intriguingly, Goethe has found that while people experience all kinds of boredom, they tend to specialize in one. Of the five types, the most damaging is reactant. Boredom with its explosive combination of high arousal and negative emotions. The most useful is what Goethe called indifferent boredom. Someone isn't engaged in anything satisfying, but still feels relaxed and calm. However, it remains to be seen whether there are any character traits that predict the kind of boredom each of us might be prone to. Psychologist Sandy Mann at the University of Central Lancashire, UK, goes further. All emotions are there for a reason, including boredom, she says. Man has found that being bored makes us more creative. We're all afraid of being bored, but in actual fact, it can lead to all kinds of amazing things, she says. Um, in experiments, in experiments published last year, Mann found that people who had been made to feel bored by copying numbers out of the phone book for 15 minutes came up to more creative ideas about how to use a polystyrene cup than a control group. Many concluded that a passive, boring activity is best for creativity because it allows the mind to wander. In fact, she goes so far as to suggest that we should seek out more boredom in our lives. Psychologist John Eastwood at York University in Toronto, Canada, isn't convinced. If you are in a state of mind wandering, you are not bored, he says. In my view, by definition, boredom is an undesirable state. That doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't adaptive, he adds. Pain is adaptive. If we didn't have physical pain, bad things would happen to us. Does that mean that we should actively cause pain? No. But even if boredom has evolved to help us survive, it can still be toxic if allowed to fester. For Eastwood, the central feature of boredom is a failure to put our attention system into gear. This causes an inability to focus on anything, which makes time seem to go painfully slowly. What's more, your efforts to improve the situation can end up making you feel worse. People try to connect with the world, and if they are not successful, there's that frustration and irritability, he says. Perhaps most worryingly, says Eastwood, fo- repeatedly falling to repeatedly failing to engage attention can lead to a state where we don't know what to do anymore and no longer care. Eastwood's, the, Eastwood's team is now trying to explore the attention system fails. It's early days, but they think that at least some of it comes down to personality. Boredom proneness has been linked with a variety of traits. People who are motivated by pleasure seem to suffer particularly badly. Other personality traits, such as curiosity, are, are associated with a high boredom threshold. More evidence that boredom has detrimental effects comes from studies of people who are more or less prone to boredom. It seems those who bore easily face poorer prospects in education, their career, and even life in general. But of course, boredom itself cannot kill. It's the things we do to deal with it that may put us in danger. What can we do to alleviate alleviate yeah what can we do to alleviate it before it comes to that? Goetz Group has one suggestion. Working with teenagers, they found that those who approach a boring situation, in other words, see that it's boring and get stuck in anyway, report less boredom than those who try to avoid it by using snacks, TV, or social media for distraction. Psychologist Francosi Wormesfelder yeah, speculates that our over-connected lifestyles might even be a new source of boredom. In modern human society, there's a lot of overstimulation, but still a lot of problems finding meanings, she says. So instead of seeking yet more mental stimulations, perhaps we should leave our phones alone and use boredom to motivate us to engage with the world in a more meaningful way. Whew. Part 3. Artificial Artists. Can computers really create works of art? The Painting Fool is one of a growing number of computer programs which, so the makers claim, possess creative talents. Classical music by an artificial composer has had audience enraptured and even tricked them into believing a human was behind the score. Artworks painted by a robot have sold for thousands of dollars and have been hung in prestigious galleries. And software has been built which creates art that could not have been imagined by the programmer. Human beings are the only species to perform sophisticated creative acts regularly. If we can break this process down into computer code, where does that leave human creativity? This is a question at the very core of humanity, says Geraint Wiggins, a computational creativity researcher at Goldsmiths, University of London. It scares a lot of people. They are worried that it is taking something special away from what it means to be human. To some extent, we are all familiar with computerized art. The question is, where does the work of the artist stop and the creativity of the computer begin? Consider one of the oldest machine artists, Aaron, a robot that has had paintings exhibited in London's Tate Modern and the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Aaron can pick up a paintbrush and paint on canvas on its own. Impressive perhaps, but it is still little more than a tool to realize the programmer's own creative ideas. Simon Colton, the designer of the Painting Fools, is keen to make sure his creation doesn't attract the same criticism. Unlike earlier artists such as Aaron, the Painting Fool only needs minimal direction and can come up with its own concepts by going online for materials. The software runs its own web searches and trawls through social media sites. It is now beginning to display a kind of imagination too, creating pictures from scratch. One of its original works is a series of fuzzy landscapes depicting trees and skies. While some might say that they have a mechanical look, Colton argues that such reactions arise from pupils' doable standards towards software-produced and human-produced art. After all, he says, consider that the Painting Fool painted the landscape without referring to a photo. If a child painted a new scene from its head, you'd say it has a certain level of imagination, he points out. The same should be true of a machine. Software bugs can also lead to unexpected results. Some of the Painting Fool's paintings of a chair came out in black and white, thanks to a technical glitch that gives the work an eerie, ghost-like quality. Human artists like the renowned Ellsworth Kelly are lauded for limiting the color palette, so why should computers be any different? Researchers like Colton don't believe it is right to measure machine creativity directly to that of humans who, who have had millennia to develop our skills. Others, though, are fascinated by the prospect that a computer might create something as original and subtle as our best artists. So far, only one has come close. Composer David Cope invented a program called Experiments in Musical Intelligence, or EMI. Not only did EMI create composition in Cope's style, but also that of the most revered classical composer, including Bach, Chopin, and Mozart. Audiences were moved to tears, and EMI even fooled classical music experts into thinking they were hearing genuine Bach. Not everyone was impressed, however. Some, such as Wiggins, have blasted Cope's work as pseudoscience and condemned him for deliberately vague explanation of how the software worked. Meanwhile, Douglas Hofstadter, the of Indiana University, said MIE created replicas which still rely completely on the original artist's creative impulses. When audiences found out the truth, they were outraged. They were often outraged with Cope, and one music lover even tried to punch him. Amid such controversy, Cope destroyed EMI's vital databases. But why did so many people love the music, yet recoil when they discovered how it was composed? A study by computer scientist David Moffat of Glasgow Caledonian University provides a clue. He asked both expert musicians and non-experts to assess 6 compositions. The participants weren't told beforehand whether the tunes were composed by humans or computers, but were asked to guess, and then rate how much they liked each one. People who thought the composer was a computer tended to dislike the piece more than those who believed it was human. This was true even among the experts, who might have been expected to be more objective in their analysis. Where does this prejudice come from? Paul Boom of Yale University has a suggestion. He reckons part of the pleasure we get from art stems from the creative process behind the work. This can give an irresistible essence, says Bloom. Meanwhile, experiments by Justin Kruger of New York University have shown that pupils' enjoyment of an artwork increases if they think more time and effort was needed to create it. Similarly, Colton thinks that pupils experience art. They wonder what the artist might have been thinking or what the artist is trying to tell them. It seems obvious, therefore, that computers producing art, this speculation is cut short. There's nothing to explore. But as technology becomes increasingly complex, finding those greater depths in computer art could become possible. This is precisely why Colton asked the Painting Fool to tap into online social networks for its inspiration. Hopefully, this way it will choose themes that will already be meaningful to us.